Welcome to Moss Rock Preserve, and we are battling an incoming storm. I wouldn't say we're battling it, we're more looking forward to it, really. So Moss Rock Preserve here in Hoover, Alabama is the place really where I first started noticing the let's call it qualities that exhibited evidence to me of a high heat, high energy event in our ancient past. Some sort of give you context as we walk in here, the triangular mound, right? Which when you look at the LiDar, the picture, the satellite picture from above, and you see my Rumble video of walking across the Cahaba River from the X to this mound, obviously engineered mound of rubble, right? Find the drill holes on that to confirm that that was engineered, right? So at that point, other than the shattering, the debris of these rocks, that was evident all along that river and then piled up into this triangle, outside of that, I hadn't seen anything one could call evidence of the high heat. I'd seen the high energy and all the shattering. The giant boulder is slammed into the top of the hill, with nowhere to fall. So here we enter Moss Rock Preserve. Can you see the splitting there? I'm tempted to start up on top of this to show you. But already in here, you can start to see these signs of high heat, and you can see this metal. You're familiar with the videos from North Alabama. Now, further context, look at that. I am 100 plus miles south of the circular metal deposit and all of these outcroppings that look like this up in North Alabama. You see how it has the same angle as this one here. Now this carries all the way down this hillside. See these two separate pieces. Backside of this beast, you see it divides here. Now you'll start to recognize some of this stuff from North Alabama, right? Giant pieces, these weird grooving marks, almost as though the stone had melted. Here, see, with these seams running through it. Look, the moss is making the seam easy to see here. Again, some of the roadside rocks from North Alabama, I've shown you the ones that were giant with this flaring from the heat. Same thing you see here in smaller instances. Right? And then what we bring ourselves up onto, look, smaller pieces, signs of flaring here. And this stuff, what's it look like? Concrete minus the quartz rock. Here, you really get a scope for how big these things are. These giant pieces, clean broken off. You see another one over here. And I'm at the top of the cliff, if you can call it a cliff. You see the shearing, the little knobs everywhere. You can see beneath the lichen. Now I'm going to attempt to get a video from the bottom where, again, you can really see there's evidence of the metal. You know, I showed you one coming in, and you can see them against the weather. But I wanted to revisit this place while I was here. Look at the way this boulder right here is just sitting on top of that. Now, this gives you the context, you see, of when I had found, before I located and saw any of this, I found that triangular mound, guys, mound, that is a pile of pieces, large pieces of this stone with the drill holes in it. So then I come here, and down here on one of these rocks, I first noticed a little bit of splattered metal. It's obviously metal, and it looks splattered, you know, so it was melted. Well, I had native knowledge, and I'm thinking, oh, that wasn't them, right? And then you start seeing these rocks, and you see this sign of this high heat on all sides of it, and you go down this hillside, and you find the rocks with the metal, you know, all tangled in it. I've documented much of this site on Rumble, Moss Rock Preserve 1 through 9, right? So I didn't really want to focus too heavy on the documentation here, just to sort of provide context for the discovery process for me as it went along, right? So when you find that mound and this evident sign, this stuff had been blown apart by a high energy event. It has these drill holes in it, right? It was then piled back up. See the LiDAR? So I knew I had evidence of something ancient, right, with man's hands on it. You then come here and you see these, what are called typically outcroppings, with all of these strange signs. Shear, right? Little boulders here took high energy. Look at this flaring. And as you go down this hill, it's just the same. Look, you can see these sort of scalloping like it's exhibited on a lot of the stones in North Alabama, the scales of this giant thing, you know. And if we trace it all the way back over here, you can see that this, there you go, there's a nice view of these horizontal breaks in it. And here I'm up above this piece that had flipped off, and it carries on down the hill. You see, so my eyes had already been opened by what I called the light switch when I found those drill holes on that evident man-made mound of rubble, right? And then come here, and I don't have the typical narrative in my head. I have no narrative. And I see this sign of high heat. I see this melted metal, and your curiosity just naturally goes, how did this happen? And that was the spark, you know, that sort of was ignited right here in this area, that then led me to all the things I've been showcasing up in North Alabama. The absolutely perfect circular metallic deposits, the quartzine type rock that seems like concrete that is everywhere, right? Started here. It's a land of beauty and deep mystery. Until the rain hits, I'm going to walk around and get a little more footage. But for now, from Moss Rock Preserve, a mile and a half, maybe 2 as the crow flies, from the site of that triangular mound on the Cahaba River. Context is important. Hatchet Creek, which I've well documented, you know, on X and on Rumble, is, again, 60 miles this way, right? Making the southern end of this sort of impact zone as evidenced in stone, right? Moss Rock Preserve. Okay, just shooting video as I walk to provide context for this gorgeous place, no matter what. You can see over here signs of the metal. It's in seams. large piece there resting on top. Here, excellent signs of this, let's call it melting effect. Looks like a foot or a hand. Continuing good 35 feet down. Here you see at this divide, this scalloping, right? And this rounded edge. Let me make this leap here. Get a good perspective on that. Piles. '90s. This area is full of these type outcroppings. You see on both sides, look, over there I showed you when I was walking down, and here, a little scalloping as it comes down. Just as in North Alabama, right? 100 plus, 120 some odd miles north of here on Lookout Mountain. You see this melting, right? See how it's got that concrete type look to it, as those rocks do in North Alabama. It's much like walking through a complex. Walls, just like the terracing we witnessed in North Alabama. Just much more localized, right? Much more localized. Whereas up there, it is literally everywhere in North Alabama. Here it's these localized pockets due north of the giant triangular mound of rubble on the Cahaba River. Melting. And here comes that weather. Right, we're at the bottom. So much like in North Alabama, you start at the top, right, where you have these giant outcroppings that form like these walls, these terraces, and then pieces blown all the way down to the water source, which here is a much smaller water source. And as I said, it's a localized, you know, like an outpost is the word that comes to mind, you know. But down here at the very bottom, it's pieces. Same qualities, the melting, the seams of metal. You'll recognize this from many of the pieces in North Alabama, this little bubbling seam. You see one here and here, here. And then as it melts out, and even the stone, you know, starts to take this melted appearance with, again, very large boulders on top. And the weather is probably about to bring this process to an end. But I gave you a quick snapshot of where I first saw all of the qualities. Look at the webbing of the metal, just as in North Alabama, right? So you can see why the word outpost comes to mind, because here it's this localized, whereas up there, as I've done my best, you know, on my own to try to showcase to you guys, is everywhere. It's not just rocks we're looking at. and then all the way back up. Look at this one here. Look at the lines, horizontal, no weathering did that. And then these seams, you've got this sign of metal and rust coming out. You see it, guys? I didn't see that rock. I gotta get out of the weather, go pick the children up from the mall. Hope you enjoyed your relook at Moss Rock Preserve. And again, same qualities you recognize from North Alabama, but just north of the absolutely 100% no other narrative that works, man-made triangular pile of rubble on the Cahaba River. And this has been your look at the rest of the stone oddities here in the area of Hoover, Alabama. Clean shear lines, metal, giant piece, boom, blown on top. Keep climbing. Look at this rock. Now let's give you perspective on this. Oh, look, we got a cave. It's a beautiful place. I'm going to enjoy a quiet moment. And I hope you enjoyed your relook at Moss Rock Preserve. I'm here at Moss Rock Preserve in Hoover in a rock outcropping. That's what most folks would call it. That's what the narrative, the story we have been handed would call it. We have been handed other stories, however. Anyone of the Christian faith that believes in the words and the stories and the things of the Old Testament believes in a worldwide catastrophe, a flood. Therefore, you also believe in a antediluvian pre-flood civilization of some degree, for else what else was God wiping out but a civilization who had ceased to wear their prosperity with moderation, to steal the quote. All around the world, it's not just the Christian. I just use that as a common one for many of us. But traditions all around the world tell us of this same said event. I know that, and I accepted that on many levels before this process of discovery for myself, of shedding narrative blindness for myself began. And here, just south of here on the Cahaba River, at that triangular mound of rubble, you don't even have to watch the video. Look at the LiDAR alone and the satellite. You can tell this thing is engineered. And then when you climb it and you realize it's giant pieces of rock that have been piled together. They have drill holes. Then you see it's evident to someone who already has these beliefs about an antediluvian civilization to see what this was, to then come out to a local outcropping of rock and see the metal seams evident everywhere, the giant pieces of rock with the scaling, the broken angles. You know, watch all the videos, guys. I've been doing my utmost, I really have, with, again, nothing, no funding. I'm here today because my daughters needed to come shopping at a mall that was near, you know. But I'm doing my best to get the holistic view of what it is I'm evidencing here, which is evidence for an antediluvian civilization, based on what I could see that can do extraordinary things with metal and with stone that we can't quite wrap our heads around today in our current narrative understanding. But I do my best to show over all of these videos, there is no other explanation for these constant anomalies. All right, I don't think the rain's gonna stop. I hope you enjoy your look at Moss Rock Preserve today. It's a quick one, but you need to see it because, again, I'm 100 plus miles south of everything I've been showing you in North Alabama, and this is the first isolated, you know, bit of evidence that really showed me what I was looking for as I then traced this evidence all the way up to Lookout Mountain. Thanks. And on our way out, cave was down there, showing you the same features you've already seen from above. Big sheet flaring. Oh, look how well-rounded that is. Just lying there. Where'd you come from, buddy? Look at that guy perched up there. Oh, pareidolia, there's a face. Either way, there's some nice nubs. See the seams, metal. Look at that. It's just on and on in every direction. The seam there. And then coming in, I was up there. Flaring, melting. Just like the stones in North Alabama, here on the piece. All right, and this is the top ridge, guys. So with that, I'm gonna focus on my staying dry. And continue to ask questions about the narrative we have been handed about what came before. We all know what came before already. A fairly advanced civilization that God, in his infinite wisdom, felt the need to do this shit to. So this is just to document yet another observation. So here we are at the base of a giant rock outcropping, and here you'll, if I can not slip, see metal, okay, coming out of a seam. Now pan out, you can follow the seam up here. And now a particular feature as you follow the seam down here is where it at some point was molten. It had to be in order to come out of this seam. As you see, this flat lip right here looks almost like a sheet of metal sticking out, right? And then from that seam, it seems to have melted. Almost have a drip pattern here and here. And now as I come around under the corner of the outcropping, here, I've got splattered hot metal. Not coming out of a seam. And it continues, again, on top of the rock. Here, you can see a splatter of, I don't know, paint or something on top of the rock. Okay, metal is the same. It's on top of the rock versus coming out of the seam, melting out of the seam. Here, that requires a high heat incident. I think we all can agree to get molten metal. Now here, it's well known that in megalithic construction, between blocks, if I have two megalithic blocks here in the dirt, we often find the T-squares or indentions. I know the theories vary, but generally it's believed that molten metal was poured in here to link giant megalithic construction. So again, just pondering what we see. If we start with the premise of a high heat event, an asteroid, airburst, explosion, Tunguska style, or repeatedly over 1,000 years, as happened in the Younger Dryas, high heat would take said megalithic construction, applied, melt metal what's on the inside. I don't know that's what I'm seeing, but again, just prepondering the evidence that's available.